Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. It's Amy. This video is going to be my follow-up video for the last one where I now talk about Project Mourning House. It's the second project that I'm working on that I'm currently in the drafting phase for, and this one is the feminine rage story that is just, I think, been sitting with me for a long time, but I haven't really realized it. And so yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit in this video about like what inspired me, how I plotted it, and just the basic gist of it, and how far along I am in the process. And then I'll be posting other videos and shorts and stuff like that as I work on it. I'm taking a little bit of a hiatus from it right now because I have switched back to working on Project Ghost, because I want to try and finalize the third draft with edits and everything like that within the next month or two, and it's taking me longer to do that one because it's more line edits. So yeah, Project Mourning House is on hold for now, but I still want to explain what it is about and talk about it a little bit because it is a story that is extremely dear to me, and one that I feel like if my life didn't go the way it was, parts and aspects of it might be sprinkled into the story if it went a different way. So, Project Mourning House is a gothic feminine rage queer love story that deals with a lot of themes and some triggering topics. I had a long while trying to figure out what form of feminine rage I wanted to write, and I was never too sure, and I kept bouncing back and forth, and I was like, maybe I'll do a Medusa retelling, maybe I will find one for Scylla, and I was going more Greek. And then one day, just sitting down after a therapy session, it just kind of hit me, where it was like I could take those aspects that I wanted and do a combination of kind of everything and make it more magic realism. And so I started plotting and something really came together. And I fell in love with it, and since then I was just like, okay, I was taking a hiatus from Project Ghost, and I was like, that's it, I'm gonna start drafting Project Mourning House. And I think I have maybe about 10k written already for it. I'm not too sure, I'll check back later and then I'll see how much I actually have written for it. So I just checked and I actually have 11k written for Project Mourning House right now, so I was close. But yeah, like I was saying, Project Mourning House is definitely something that's very dear to me, in the sense of women hold rage, and it's not acceptable for us to show it in a way that society deems as hysterical or unhinged. And we start getting all these labels about what we are and how we're acting, and it's just like, we're just women feeling our feelings, and we have to constantly put on a mask on how we're doing it in order to make it acceptable for the appetite of men. And this is a story that I want to use to say, no, screw that. This is not what we're doing. So a recurrent theme in my stories that I've noticed with formatting the book is that I tend to put a quote in, and for this one I have a quote from Nikita Gill, and actually my last one as well, for Project Ghost I also have a quote from Nikita Gill. But this one for Project Mourning House, it says, remember what you must do when they undervalue you, when they think your softness is weakness, when they treat your kindness like it is their advantage. You awaken every dragon, every wolf, every monster that sleeps inside you, and you remind them what hell looks like when it wears the skin of a gentle human. And that, to me, is so shiver-inducingly powerful that there was no other quote that I wanted to choose and base the story around except that. Because that is what this story is. It's about a woman having been obedient and subservient and oppressed by men in her life, and every woman in her family being the same, and then those who lash back or who... Sorry about that part, kind of just randomly ended. I just lost electricity and then it came back on because where I live, they're special at times. But yeah, Project Mourning House is the story of a woman learning to not be soft and not be silenced, and to give punishment to the men who are hurting her, who have damaged her. And she is our unhinged feral self. She is the woman that becomes the folklore creature at the edge of the forest that everyone is afraid of, but she's actually just living her best life. She is a woman who finds herself and is not afraid to stand up for herself and tell the patriarchal society to shove it where the sun don't shine. And that is what I love. That is what is pushing me to write the story, because I feel like we all as women have that part in ourselves, and we don't get to express it as much because we live in too much fear, or we are in certain situations where it's unsafe. And being able to explore that rage in a story setting, for me, is what is the most important, because then I am exploring how to not only stand up for myself, and yes, it's going to have magical realism and it's going to have all these fantastical elements into it, but it is also going to be something that like I can pass down. And even if it doesn't get published, it is a story that I would love for my daughter to read, and any other young girl or woman, because they need to understand their rage is justified. And even though we might not always have the best way to express it, or we might have to mask or put on a facade, we are still entitled to feel it. It is a valid feeling, even if society tells us it's not and labels us as hysterical. I think we as women need to take back the terms of the negative way that they're putting it, of like being unhinged and feral, and describing women as negatives like that. I have now made it a conscious effort to be like, oh yeah, I'm completely unhinged and I love it. And it's because I am acting more of my true self and not allowing society and the patriarchy to paint me and mold me into the way that they want to see me. I am not a silent woman who allowed oppression to continue. I am a woman who wants to fight back. And I am a woman who will use her words to do so. And this is my way of doing it. This story means that part for me. Oh, that's weird to cry on camera for people. I didn't expect this reaction of wanting to cry. Weird. But I think it's a rawness that we need to see, because women are angry, and we deserve to talk about that anger. So follow me in this journey of talking about anger and rage and being our unhinged selves and finding ourselves and peace and love along the way. This is Project Mourning House. So, Project Mourning House for me has different themes that I wanted to explore, and I tend to write the main theme and then I break it down into questions on what I want to explore. So for one of them, it's repression and the silencing of female voices, and I wanted to know how I was going to do that. So the questions I had under it was, how does repression manifest? What does it look like? How to go against the repression and the silencing, and what happens to women who fight back and are silenced. And I have certain characters already planned and plotted out who are going to showcase these different themes that I want to explore. Another one is inheriting trauma and generational rage. What did the women do before? We are a certain generation of women, but what happened before? How did they respond? Did they rage? Did they show their rage? Can generational trauma be broken? How does that look like? And then what can we learn from the women before us? The women who were burned, the women who were slaughtered and murdered, the women who weren't silent. There's so many things that I can look at with this, and yeah, that one theme of inherited trauma and generational rage is going to be a big one that I need to unpack a lot, I think. Another theme is empowerment, not madness. They tend to say a woman who's talking out and speaking back out and everything like that is hysterical, especially if we are rightfully enraged and trying to talk about that rage. They label us as hysterical. Women were literally diagnosed with hysteria for years until finally the DSM changed it, and that is insane. So within that theme, my question for it was, how does patriarchy twist empowerment and turn it into a woman being mad? And then also I'm doing a gothic horror, but as a feminist resistance story. And so then I wanted to explore what are the beliefs that men have towards women, specifically the men that I'm writing about in this fictional town that I'm creating. And then I also want to explore how the women are different from the men. In what ways are women trying to distance themselves from the men, or how they're engaging with the men. These are all things that I want to explore. So the premise for Project Mourning House is that there is a woman who, like every good gothic story, inherits a house from a deceased family member, and she is the last relative who can obtain the house. And so she goes back to a seaside manor, gorgeous manor in the way I'm envisioning it, and she is then claiming the inheritance. And in this town there's a lot of almost palpable patriarchy, and she has to try and navigate it. And there's also, this is where the magical realism comes in, where she and every woman in her family has experienced a curse, or what they call as a curse, where they always die by the hands of a man, or if the ones who do speak out, they usually have some other form of fatality that is linked to a man, or they're abused, or there's something that's going on that is oppressing them. And so that kind of ties into some of the women before her finding out that they have magic, and it's usually the rage that awakens it. So this is her, it's kind of a coming of age, but not really, because she's like well in her 20s. But it is a coming of age story in the sense of finding herself, accepting herself, and finding her magic, and allowing herself to feel the rage and not hide it, not think of it as something bad, and using it as a way to fight the oppression. And so yeah, this is the story where we find just how powerful someone can be when they accept every part of themselves. I kind of think back to like Lady Persephone, where it's the light and the darkness. There's a little bit of darkness in all of us, and it's coming to terms and accepting those part of ourselves, and we come into our true selves, and we can be both a goddess of spring and the queen of the underworld. And this is kind of that story where it's, we can be cheerful, and we can be pleasant, and we can be kind, but also we can take our power back, and we can institute boundaries and demand respect, and it be something that should just be common and like not have to be questioned or asked for or begged for. So we have these different sides of ourselves, and that's something I also want to explore in this as well. And it's going to deal with a lot of like the generational trauma and there's going to be books in the secret room, and that's kind of how she finds her magic and everything like that. And yeah, the story is one, my fingers are itching to continue writing, but I also want to give the room to Project Ghost that it needs. So I'm excited when I take another break from editing Project Ghost to come back to the story to continue writing it. So this will be the last little bit that I kind of talk about for this for now, because I feel like there's probably a lot more to say, and then like going into the characters themselves, I feel like also just deserves its own video because it's quite a bit. But so the tropes that I want to do specifically for Gothic romance are transgressions, so wild emotions, and they're going to be compared to nature. Of course, we have the romance part of it. She's going to have a dark and troubled past, the main character. There's going to be the supernatural, like magic, possibly a deal with the devil of sorts or deities. We're going to bring the gods into this. Alienation, and then of course a small controlled setting. For feminine rage themes and tropes, there's going to be the motherhood, sexism, violence and double standards, identity, autonomy, manipulation, and being silenced. And these are the things I hope that I can do justice in exploring in this story, because these are things that need to be talked about in order to become socially acceptable, to be spoken about, instead of being taboo and kind of pushed under the rug and silenced. So yeah, these are the themes and tropes I kind of want to explore. I'm gonna put some videos in kind of like in between what I've been writing and just day in the life stuff, because I also feel like just putting like stuff in where I'm just talking is also a lot, and it's also weird for me because I'm still not used to talking at the camera. But yeah, so alright friends, I hope you enjoyed this. I will be posting another video. I don't know when. I'm hoping I can do every 2 weeks, but yeah, life with chronic illness and chronic pain and a toddler is just chaotic, so yeah, I'll see. Thank you for joining in for today's video. I hope you liked it. Comment, like, subscribe. You can drop this little emoji in the comment section if you made it all the way to the end of the video. And yeah, I hope to see you in 2 more weeks. Bye!